Hello everybody. My name is Bohdan, and I'm working in Axiom management. I'm Microsoft MVP. I really would love to drink a beer, but today is real cold, that's why I drink a coffee. Sorry me for that. And also really like to speak and make some speeches about MAUI and Xamarin.Forms. In a daily basis, I work on application of the different size and different complexity of some UI, but mostly it's something quite modern. So today I would like to share with you how we can create a modern applications. You may saw me during the year in my blog, sometimes in my videos, but it's not true because I just make only one video per year. And also speaking in different conferences like here for Damian. Also with Marcin Jaroszynski and Bogusław Blonsky, we are making some small Xamarin meetup at Rzeszow, sometimes on Cracow, and MagicGradients. Also time to time, we're making some online conferences in our meetup page. And just only a couple of words, our company Nexio searching for Xamarin developers. So if you are interested to work with me, to work in different modern projects, just check it out in Nexio management official page for vacancies and applying. It will be nice. And the main question of my presentation, why in end of 2021 I speaking about Xamarin? Why not MAUI? And the great answer was a half year ago from James Montemagno. He explained why today, if you'd like to make the app should work smoothly without any bugs and should just be nice, you still need to use Xamarin. And the main reason that for a moment is pretty stable comparing to what we have so far in MAUI. But we also are planning to migrate our applications to MAUI probably in the end of 2022. But it will be not a hard process, like 80% or even 90% will be easy to migrate. More about that questions to Damian, he will tell you everything in the next speech. So at the beginning, we start from the app that should work. It's not been nice looking 20 years ago. And even 2-3 years ago, there were still some enterprise applications that even I made that just should work. UI and design is really unneeded, but hopefully the last 2 years I never heard about that again. It's not because I'm changing the work, it's because at last a marketing change, and even for enterprise application, we need to care about nice looking UI. So what is nice looking UI? What is makes nice? And how to do it? So for example, quite good sample. Here just the same structure, not the best, but okay for our example. We have some pictures, some data, some tabs, but on the left side, we have the wrong contrast. It's not readable. But on the right, we just adding the good contrast, just adding some small blur and couple curve shapes, and it just looks much better. For example, just compare that titles. We have just on the white, purple text, and here, white text on the purple with a curve corner. It looks much, much better, but still it could be done much better at all, but not about that. And for starting, some Leo Mari's blog about the simplest implementation of UI. All that links that I have during my presentation, it's like a 60 something, will be in the end before Q&A, so you can scan it or copy and read, watch, because there are a lot of videos and other blog posts for you for the evening. So calendar UI. First of all, I'd like to mention that like 90–95% during my work, I'm using only grids or stack layouts to layouting all my items inside the screen. Yes, we have something like absolute layout, like flags, but it's like only 5–10% of all our work is but rarely using for some base stuff. For example, here we have an image in the first row in the grid, rows making just one on top of another. Also, we can make rows and columns to separate it, but if we place just in the same place, it will be one in front of another. Stack layout just place one by one elements, never on the same position. And here was quite interesting. Sometimes it's a dirty trick is making margin -50 to come above the image. Mostly it's done that we have just the same row, but sometimes it's also a way to achieving that on top of an image. And here, for collection of our items, we're using something not new because like 2 years old, but quite popular collection view to showing a list of elements. And here we have a second collection view inside. And let me just restart it in debug mode, because I'd like to show you that we have a stack layout that could be converted to some kind of collection view. And it's thanks to bindable layout that can attach to any layouts, for example, grid, stack, frame, whatever, and just make it kind of collection view, because just what we passing into item templates, also to empty templates, copied for a couple times for each entity inside our collection. So with that collection view and stack layout, we'll achieve just the same UI. But we need to remember for ourselves that stack layout is not scrollable. That's why we got so strange UI. To fix that, we need just to add a scroll view on top of it. Save, and we will achieve just the same like from collection view. We can do it when we don't need the whole power of the collection view. For such, for example, that small list, we don't need the whole power of that collection views. It can dynamically add a new items, response to different gestures, and so on. It's my first and simple example. And after that, let's speak slightly about the colors. Because colors making our apps modern, really. For example, all that from the dribble just made with 4 colors: gray, blue, green, and white. For me, it's too toxic, that colors, but it's still really cool example that only with couple colors we can style everything and look consistent. Also, you may see that here everywhere we don't have the same corners on each side. For example, here just going to minus and to plus some corners and to the bottom. And just the same example to how implemented, you can also read from Leomars. That will be your homework, guys. But in 2 words, she's using the pancake view, which allowing us to modify each corner of our frame, called pancake view there. Because for frame and for buttons in Xamarin.Forms, we can modify only 4 corners in one time. But more you can read in the here block, but mostly just the same with the curved corners comparing to that example that we have so far. And next cool example, let me open furniture shop. I think it's furniture, I hope. And let's run it on the right because we don't need a debugger anymore. It's all time making the right. Okay, it's a problem with our presentation because here is an invisible window, even for me, where I should see you, but I don't. That's why I can't click there. So in that case, let's fab it. And here, let's start from Explorer part. We have also some collection with an items, but when we select, you can see, probably I can even zoom slightly, that nice awesome shadow that appears on the bottom. For example, here, shadow is empty, and when we click, we can see it slightly to bottom. So that's a cool NuGet named SharpNado. So here is a main page. And here is our collections right after the category label. And here we set that wrap all our pancake view frame into a shadow where we setting the blue radius, our offset and opacity. It's really hard to achieve with different native implementations, but with NuGet, you could just go with only one line and couple properties to achieve some cool modern shadow. For disabling it was quite interesting trick used with a triggers, where we're checking if our item is not selected for our shadows, we set a shadow property just to 0. And when that not triggered once again, it's just rolling back to initial values. And nothing really interesting inside. One that I can show you that here we're using grid and showing image on top of the box. Here is not the white background of the image, it's a separate box used that just on the back of the image. So it's just in front of that. The next interesting thing here is about the chairs that go outside. Like in our previous example, here use just a minus margin. That's quite good in that example, but we have only one UI issue here, that our text go to the back of the chair. Maybe it was designed by that way, but mostly when I see the design, so that it's a problem for someone later. So if you making something for different screen size, you need to test it at last on the most popular, the largest, and the smallest one. Same for Android. And as I told, is just an image with a minus margin. And what interesting here is that text. We can format text in a different ways. Most popular is with a formatted string. I will show you that code in a moment, or with some converters. We can also inline modify a text with string formatted text and write just some modification inline, but it's really used because mostly in real application use RESTX files for resources to have some multiple languages inside or across your application. But that trick with formatted string, where we have just couple span with just a small part of the text, is really common to use. For example, here scale up to, then we have a semi bold with orange text and get back to initial. Also quite cool that I don't know if you can see during the animations that we have hero navigations, that each chair that we can select, it goes to top of our detail screen. Okay. So how we can done it? For that is also a quite cool small NuGet of named shared transactions. Here we have a collection. Again, collection view, guided template, nothing interesting, and our image. And we have in the view model tells that before navigating, we set in that shared transaction has go to that new page with that product ID. And in our details page, our image on the top, also quite interesting done, shared transaction name furniture. That name should be just exactly the same name we have on the main page. And also we bind that ID that we set on our view model. That exactly that image from that place comes here. And as we can see, any image from any position goes actually to where we expect it in get back also. It's all we need to do to make that. Pretty simple. And let's continue. What else made our UI, our applications looks awesome? It's animated graphics and some small microtransactions. And how we can easily describe the microtransactions is just the same design you have, but with slight delay and with some show and hide animations. Just take a look of that GIF. Everything is pretty simple, but showing not immediately. Comes from different places and it's catching your eyes because you're focusing. Okay, you don't say where my search results are, where it is, because when it's animating, your brain catching it, it's following that, and you immediately know where something new was shown, where it is. And for that, we have quite awesome blog. Let me just open it. I will show you the key once again. Anzon. It's an old one, but it's still the best that I saw from a simple example. Because everything that here are is just some changing opacity, transactions, and fading. That's all. That's all that he's using besides his example, but it's made quite cool wow effect so far for 2 years or even 2.5. So how he done it? Sorry, don't like me. It's not hiding Z controls, but hiding the windows with you guys. And on. When we click, we're showing a couple cards and animated close button. When we close it, it's animating everything back. How it done? For example, that animated close button is quite done with on one function where we're checking if it's appearing or disappearing, here named entering. And if yes, we set initial start positions and then just fade it, rotate, and translate. Mean change X, Y position, Y here only, but we can also change the X position. We rotating it and just change the opacity with different delay. And this makes that cool, awesome effect. Z cards are always pretty same way. We setting some initial values and then not waiting for first animation, but waiting only for the next one. Here we don't wait for anything, just waiting for showing that. And in that way, when we click, it's immediately rotate by X and showing us. And the same when we closing back. Quite interesting also is about a flipping. Here, if I click delete, we have a flip animation. Why it's so cool? Because it looks like that it's completely was flipped from first side to another. But in a code, we just at first rotated into -90, then to -90, then set second card to 90, hide first, show second, and continue rotation. So it's just like half a screen one card and second half of the screen second card from and to elements that we have here. And it's showing that quite cool flipping effect for us. And it's pretty simple. It's just a couple lines of code, but making your UI, your application feels really natural, looks awesome for your users. One more homework from Javier about the plant mode. It's also an old blog, but here quite cool, showing that card that when we click, it's just appearing for a whole screen with slight delay, thanks to same animations and a transaction inside the image. It's called parallax, as far as I remember. Just pay attention when he slightly scroll to the top. It's also slightly change the image on the background. Next cool example that stopped working for me is awesome for demos. It's showing the video with a paths. Paths is something quite new, still not everybody use it, but it's really awesome. Let's take a look on it. Let me just open login page. And same here. It stopped working because the video that was attached was corrupted. And I've done to showing the video from YouTube. It's not so easy, but it's possible inside Xamarin.Forms application just with one NuGet package. It will be in the links, but I don't have that code anymore because I accidentally revert all my changes and don't have enough time to prepare it once again, but it's possible. You can go to links and just check it out. to show some videos from YouTube inside your application. Here was used just the Xamarin Essentials media element, which can play some videos. It also can play video from YouTube, but to get the correct link, or in our case, a stream from YouTube, we need that NuGet package, which will convert the actual URL of YouTube video into a stream, so we can show it, just replacing only source here. And what we have so far? We have our inside grid media element, back of everything, then that blue, kind of blue color from box view opacity. Here you can see how it might look like when we will have some video on the background. Sorry. And on top of it, we have 3 paths that makes triangle. And we have a lot of cool designer tools to make the paths, but mostly you can just copy and paste it. But we have a couple interesting speeches and also tutorials how to make it manually. But for me, it was still really hard, so I probably will never make it by my own. So what we have here, a path that draws us with respect to uniform the data with some different opacity. And the last path here was a blue line. Also, what is quite interesting is that Facebook and Google logo are also paths. So you can draw something even more complex with that paths, which was quite cool. And also that login button here done with ellipse. It's just a path predefined for some round shapes and the path for line inside that arrow. Next, quite cool example again for your homework is from David Ortinau, where he's showing that new way for showing images with that ellipse. Here he makes quite cool tricks that previously it was done like a frame inside a box view and inside an image, everything was cut with a frame. Right now the new way quite simpler, because we have just an ellipse, orange. Inside it, we have only one image. An image can be clipped with different paths, rectangle, square, ellipse. And now we have a round avatar inside our application. Also, inside his blog, it's quite interesting to read. He's showing that light dark scene, how to change only with one line, and how he's done that awesome part. And spoiler, it's just a path. Only one line again. So we want to create Xamarin.Forms application. What NuGet should we use? Because it's like hundreds of them. Here, really short links of 15 recommended by me NuGet packages you may use for your application. Also, sometimes we not using every NuGet package in all our applications. Sometimes we're using something more than I have here, but it's some NuGet packages that you probably should be interested in when you start a new app today. But before we start talking about them, I would like to mention 3 interesting package of controls that can make you speed up if you have a lot of money. It's a Syncfusion, Telerik, and DevExpress. They're all paid. It's like quite cool, but sometimes you still can face in the moment that something on your designs that you need to be stricted to is slightly different that it can behave from that frameworks, and then you may have some problems with re-implementing or change that predefined behavior. But mostly it can really speed up your development for like weeks, but it's costing like that your week payment. It's like even more for some of them. Pretty obvious. Stay each time with the latest version of Xamarin.Forms because there are some bug fixes. Right now we don't get any new features because we have a MAUI, but bug fixes still can come out. Xamarin Essentials. Right now it's initially added to each project, and it's really cool because allowing you to communicate with different features cross-platform, not implemented. For example, secure storage, really cool to use. Media pickers that I showed before, some open browser for opening some URLs and getting some interesting, for example, information about a battery, also a geolocation, geocoding to get your location, to get the name of location where you are, and so far. Xamarin Community Toolkit, quite cool. I don't know why I really rarely use it, but it's really cool. It's something you just need to know that it exists, because it has a lot of converters that you probably will write, and I probably write most of them by my own. And if I will know about that there exists, I will just reuse it. So quite cool NuGet and MVVM frameworks. Here is just up to you. Mostly in enterprise applications using a Prism or MVVM cross. For example, we're using only MVVM cross right now, but all other is still cool. I tried MVVM Lite. I heard probably also from Damian 3-4 years ago about Micro-Intera, about intro to Xamarin, and it was quite interesting for me. It shows me quite cool. So it's just up to you. Also, we have quite interesting reactive UI that you can use with Intertop along with a Prism or MVVM cross. But a couple of months ago, like a half of a year even, I found debounce monitoring. Quite simple NuGet package gives me the possibility to make a debouncer, a throttling RX implementation. Only that one, because it's mostly like 89%, 90% that are using for reactive UI, the throttling to not allowing double click or something like that. Quite cool NuGet package. Also, we have Xamarin.Forms shell, quite awesome for small applications. Mostly we not use inside enterprise because it's not compatible with most of the frameworks because it hides navigation. But for small application where you need to have tabs and flyouts, is really cool because you can design everything inside one file, whole structure of your application. Xamarin.Forms skeleton, allowing us to make a shadow loading with just a couple lines of code. We just wrap in our page, our elements. We'd like to have a shadow navigation, shadow loading, and set if it's loading or loaded. When it's loaded, just hide. If loading, it just shows that awesome rectangles that also we can control the way it's blinking, the color of that all. Quite cool. Also quite hard NuGet package SkiaSharp. It's really awesome. And micro charts that are cool open source charts are built on top of it. MagicGradients are built on top of it, but it's require a lot of time you to be an expert there. But it's worth it. It's really worth it. For example, we have a blog post inside my links with that example where you just clicks, has that underline. He finishing, clicks enter, clicks OK on the keyboard. Its animated lines go to the password and focus was changed. And to confirm and then to sign up. Initial sign up without that line. It's not so easy to achieve, but when you understand the way it works, it will be something that you probably use in each your project. Already mentioned about that. Presentation forms from shared matter. Quite cool. Tabs, shadows. Also, it's called neuromorphism. Was quite popular in 2020. Right now, it's more popular Aurora UI or Glassmorphism, but still we can see some new dribble shots with new designs with that, because still something like fresh for most of the application. RG plugin pop-ups. Quite cool, rich pop-ups where you can place anything, just a whole page inside it. You can place one on top for another, for have some additional filtering, show some login information, whatever. Just completely with whole cycle pages inside the pop-ups. Really using everywhere in each my project. FF image loading. You can cache your images, show SVG images, transform it. You right now can transform without that, but the caching and showing some SVGs and also the renderings that is slightly faster when you have a high list of the image items, making that quite interesting NuGet still. even after all improvements in Xamarin.Forms for speeding up driving the images. MagicGradients. It's not just making 2-3 lines gradients, it's more even about playing with them inside the playground that you can find in GitHub. Download it and just run to play with all that. And also like 1700s predefined complex CSS gradients that you can just copy and paste with only one line and use inside your application for background, for some items, for some buttons or lists. Maps. Nowadays, like 75 or even 80% of application has some maps integrated. Mostly common way to use is Xamarin.Forms map, but also you may use Xamarin Google Play Services maps, where you will have the Google Play Google Maps inside both Android and iOS applications. Also quite awesome is a Mapbox maps. They're not more expensive than Google and has really cool and awesome features. It's added, but we have a problem with NuGet packages for Xamarin for a moment, because that project are not supported for the last 2 years. It's really disappointing. So in one of my applications, we have a bug with the newest Android. We just need to switch back to Google Play services, unfortunately. Also, we have some SyncFusion maps. Never tested, so I can't tell if they're good or not. PancakeView already saw it, allowing you to also make some gradients from a couple lines, but mostly used to make different corners or borders of your container. For example, here we have a Xamarin logo in the end, like a hexagon made only with PancakeView and simple controls. Lottie animations, quite cool because we have 1,000 free animations, some of them paid, but just like $2, quite cheap, and can be integrated with only one control where you're setting the couple parameters like is it in loop, how much count it should reproduce that animation, should it show and should it play and so on. And with that, your application looks really nice. All you need to do, download JSON definition of the path and transactions, attach to your Xamarin.Forms solution and reuse it with only one control. But we need to be aware because a lot of animation can make your app feel slowly because you can lose some frames on the slower Android device, especially for Android. Mostly for iOS, there are no such problem. Sorry, need some coffee. Shared transactions. Already showing you that example. It's just couple lines of code. You set the group of transactions because you can't have couple in the same screen. You set the ID of the image from previous screen because it should return in the just exactly the same place. And that's it. It's all you need. And last, it's not about UI, but more about validation, because quite can speed up you with validation because we made a lot of validation, for example, for login process, for registering process, and search forever. You can add, we have a lot of rules to add that we can really manipulate, create different validators for whole customer or for only couple fields of that. Also, it's quite easy to create your custom, your private validators and add it to a fluent way. Where can I get updates? So we have a weekly Xamarin, quite interesting email where it was collected almost interesting stuff, podcasts, blog posts, conferences, videos, whatever connected to Xamarin. Also, we have a Planet Xamarin inside a Twitter, where the blog post also gets from RSS triggers and posted immediately, or like a delay with an hour from an original post. And you also can find your favorite speaker, E.NET Foundation, and just follow him. Also, we have a Xamarin community, how it called, not a weekly, but can you help me, Damian, and can't remind it for myself? Community stand-up. It's weekly or
yeah, monthly, once in a month.
in a month?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. So you can follow it in official .NET community channel. I'm sure that I added also to the channel to our list of the channels, list of the links in the end of the presentation. Also, quite interesting blog post inside the links Xamarin Tools 2021, where is listed like 300 or even more interesting tools, interesting blogs, NuGet packages that you may use. Quite interesting to read because even I found some quite new, fresh, and interesting stuff for me. So, who can I watch and subscribe on YouTube? First of all, James and David. It's definitely someone you need to follow. Also, a quite interesting channel from Kim, but he's mostly streaming. So it's, if you'd like to watch 3, 4, 5 hours videos, it's your choice. Also quite interesting new channel, like a year old, but from Gerald, because he's showing a short video about some problem, some feature from Xamarin Essentials, or mostly from Xamarin Toolkit, and describes the bindings, describe interesting stuff. So if you would like to learn in easy ways the Xamarin Community Toolkit and know what you can do with that, because it's a really huge library for a moment, you definitely need to go and check out that videos. So it's like 10, 15 minutes mostly, even some have only 5. Also, old channel Xamarin developers. And we have Xamarin Guy, which is showing quite interesting examples also of implementation, some stuff. And one more old channel, Xamarin University. Not sure if it's still supported, but we have a lot of videos from 2-3 years old where it's explained in detail some interesting aspects of Xamarin, which still will be valid even for MAUI. And their crooks. For example, from there, you may saw that example. Also, I have a link for especially that video where everything is explained. So, tips and tricks. Mostly in a blog post and even in my presentation, you can see the styles done in that way. Don't do it. Please don't do it. In enterprise, we don't make in that way because it will be just a mess if designer would like to change some predefined color or main color or some default margins. Then you need to go across all your screens and manually replace it because you're not sure if that 24 goes for corner radius or for margin. It may be a problem if you try to search, find all and replace. So what we are doing instead of that, we making styles where we set the target, set a key. If you don't specify a key, it will be the general style. It can be only one per one type. And then we can set each property. Also, it was just cut out here was changed value according to up theme binding for light and dark theme. So it can be done only with one line of the code. And later we can use it. So our buttons will have only text, style, and command, a name if you need it. And all such like a corner radius, color, background, color, opacity, wherever it goes to styles. And right now it's quite easy to read your XAML pages because you can open and see on the structures that there are 2 buttons, 1 collection with grid and labels inside and so on. Also, there is a possibility to style everything with CSS. Unfortunately, in enterprise, I don't find any application that style will be like that, but CSS styling quite awesome because it has a lot of interesting selectors that are not supported with standard styles or style classes. I will speak about them in a moment. So it just easily can represent whole your structure of a page inside the CSS. So, for example, inside Flex Layout, we can place that a label or a first label or each label or labels that not inside a grid should be green. And we can, in that way, the whole structure for code simply style without any additional classes, using, for example, with style class or by predefined selectors, like here, file Flex Layout inside some page. Also, we have a style class, where you specify class instead of keys. It can be useful when you don't have a predefined styles for all your application. For example, you have 40 different labels. Yes, they all different. There is bold, semi-bold, there are green, yellow, and you don't have one same opinion with your design to create some header styles, primary label, secondary label. In that case, you may try a style class. For example, here we can use together a couple classes. And in that way, each style class can be really small, or only for one property or two. For example, that label is icon moon, which is an icon label. It's white and fill and centering text. Second is just white and bold and also fill and second. Third is just a regular white label. Right now we imagine that it's just icon with white label, bold label, and regular white label. We can now play it more flexible ways than with standard styles. MagicGradients Playground. It's something that you can inspire it by because it's not contains only the predefined CSS gradients, but also a way to create your own, to play with that. And later, if you click here, you can just share it, and it's give you all CSS codes of gradients that you're creating here in that playground, and you can just copy and place inside your app. Also, in preview, we have something like animations. It's quite interesting. You can try to use it. We have quite a flexible API inspired by Xamarin's animation, so you can define everything inside XAML for that animation, the gradients, the behavior, in the played or not. Also, if you allow some gradients before applying to your application, you can battle test it. For example, here, if you open it, also it's search, it's not interesting for us. If we find long, if we open it, you can click copy CSS or paint it. And here you can see how it may looks on buttons, on a list, on small buttons with white or black text. Also about YouTube, you can subscribe design course or I Love UI, where you can get some inspiration by some interesting cases for mobile devices. Oh, yes, there are also some videos for some designs for websites, but also a huge part of them are connected only about mobile devices. And Michał Malewicz is a Poland speaker about designs. He's starting the, just a moment, neomorphism, glassmorphism, and this year explained Aurora UI trend styles. He's one of the first creating, explaining in the dev how we can create neomorphism. Later, how to create a glassmorphism designs. But it can be interesting for us, for developers, because we don't have some NuGet page for glassmorphism, because he just taken the rectangles and explained how to get that effect, how to set the blur, where it should be, what opacity it should be, in what place according to another stuff on the UI. And if you get some glassmorphism design, you can go to his video where he's explained how to make it and make each element according to that, just by adding each property, the blur, the shadow, and so on. And in the end, you can achieve that complex UI inside your application. Also, he had a couple interesting design course for UI in mobile apps to understand how it can be created, in what way, and also the book of UI designs. And why that book is awesome? Because it's showing the common problems of a lot of designed systems. So for example, if you have some couple buttons and you get that design from even some designer, you will have a point to tell, hey, it's not right because the left margin is 20, but for right button, the left margin is only 5. it's too close, it should be in the same way. Or for example, the clickable space for that icon is too small. Probably we can increase it by changing the icon size or in some background font, or just add the clickable area for that icon slightly bigger. What else? A link. 52. I'm in time. Here's a barcode. You can try to scan it with your phones. Yeah, that here is a barcode. And go to that link, the URL is Xamarin Modern UI, where you have 60 links to all the channels, all the blog posts, videos that I mentioned today. Also, there was a link for quite awesome GitHub page, Xamarin Awesome UI, where was collected like a 200 or even more small application, which represents some interesting implemented modern UI. And I'm ready for your questions. Let me just open the chat. Is the tutor still a valid source for news? Yes. Okay, I don't see a question. So you can ask that with your microphone if you want.
So I don't have any question, Bogdan, but I think you have presented very great examples of UI in Xamarin.Forms, and those examples show how mature Xamarin frameworks is right now. And you can create many great UI designs with it.
Really love the way it was done with that unzone, because it's really with just a couple lines showing how to implement that for first looks a complex UI with that animation, but it's really simple in the dev.
Yeah, and I like what you said, that you can create almost every UI with usage of grid and stack layout.
Because it's just true.
Yeah,
it's what we use daily.
I have the same experience.
Yeah, rarely we can use absolute layout or some flex, but really it's everything grid and stack. Why are everyone scared of that?
Actually, I never use absolute layout in an application.
Yeah, and yeah, how much years are you working as a Xamarin developer?
Yeah.
Yeah. Becoming
Exactly.
Xamarin developers, guys, it's quite easy. It's not making hard designed backend systems with all that mappers and so just grid and stack layout.
Yeah, and I also like that you mentioned about pancake view and the Sharpnado shadows. I think those two libraries are very great. I was using also them in my project. Very useful.
Yeah, especially for the shadows. It's quite cool. Sorry, here.
Yes, I just wanted to mention as well that I like these shadows because I was spending lots of time implementing custom shadows myself, and it's actually
yeah,
always some problems on some Android and iOS. So if it works, I need to. But one thing I wanted to mention, because you mentioned before Syncfusion, and one thing I think want to say that actually for small teams, if you are up to 5 persons and some, it's actually free. They have very nice community license. It's like a full set of controls, everything for free for small teams.
I get a question about how a flip was connected to the UI. And here we have a delete tab recognizer. Because unfortunately, that's not the great example from MVVM architecture pattern, but it's not needed for that example. Mostly you'll have some command or Xamarin Community Toolkit, touch animation, touch effect, but here is using just a simple tab gesture recognizer. And that command are here. So we are closing, and then make a flipping. Also, the same recognizers are connected here. In the real life, you probably will use for that Xamarin Community Toolkit because it has an awesome native animation that allows you to make any label clickable as it can be a button. and attaching to it common parameters. So the two views occupy the same space in the grid as well. Yeah, if you have a grid and don't specify any row or columns, each thing go on top of previous. So let's open, for example, that furniture runs again this window. Here, a good example of that. Okay, I can't click anymore. Let me try to restart the top. The good example here on the main page, where we have categories. We have that item inside collection view, so it's iterable. And inside grid, we have only one element. I don't know why we have inside grid. It's not needed here because only one element. So we have a shadow. Inside shadow on the pancake view, we just, for us, it's just like a frame. And inside it, we have a grid. And our grid has two columns, first and a second. First column, we have box view and image because we don't specify column 0. Here is the same if you not specify. Here we specify in the column 1. And box view goes to the back of the image. If we just, let me just start it in debug. Rider tries to die, don't die. Okay, it's die. So in real time with hot reload, if I will replace image with box view, we will just see that white circle only. So how it will be was clear for you, Rico. So any other questions? You're welcome. Thanks, Damian. Stage is your.
Thank you, Bohdan, for your presentation.